His childhood looked normal, but a dangerous interest was taking root. Michael Hernandez was born in 1990. He grew up in a suburb just outside Miami, Florida. He went to Southwood Middle School in Palmetto Bay. He had become obsessed with serial offenders like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. He kept detailed journals describing how he wanted to follow in their footsteps. He called them his heroes. On February 3, 2004, Michael invited his friend Jaime Rodrigo Gauff into a school bathroom stall. Jaime was 14 and a skilled violinist. Michael said he had something to show him. Then he pulled out a sharp tool. He struck Jaime more than 40 times and aimed for his throat in a planned act. Afterward, Michael slipped the sharp object into a hidden pocket in his backpack. He walked away as if nothing had happened. A teacher later found Jaime's body. She saw red stains on Michael. He was arrested on the spot. During the investigation, he told police calmly and in detail how he had lured Jaime into the stall, mimicked what he had seen in documentaries, and felt powerful doing it. Investigators soon uncovered troubling evidence. Michael was obsessed with notorious figures. He even kept a list of classmates he wanted to harm, including Andre Martin. His notes showed he meant to repeat this behavior. The list had 5 names. His next target was set for 2 days later, February 5. At his trial, Michael was treated as an adult. He pleaded not guilty because of mental illness. Prosecutors argued he was cold and calculating. They played recordings of him joking that he could not cry. He even said he planned to wound himself just to feel something. Guards had also found homemade blades in his cell. Psychologists diagnosed him with narcissistic traits and signs of antisocial personality disorder. One report noted his lack of empathy and detachment from reality. Andre Martin testified that Michael had once warned him of these plans when they were both 13. No one believed him at the time. The lead prosecutor called Michael a well-planned perpetrator who had not changed. Jurors heard that Michael had rehearsed the acts for weeks, testing the sharp weapon at home and even timing how long it would take. In 2008, the jury rejected the mental illness defense. Michael was found guilty of first-degree taking of life. He received a life term with no chance of release. Jaime's family felt both relief and sorrow at the verdict. In 2016, a U.S. Supreme Court decision said juveniles couldn't face mandatory life terms without review. Michael returned to court at age 26. He apologized in tears. "I'm sorry for all the pain I caused." But recordings later showed him mocking emotions, praising dark imagery and music, and expressing a desire to become a serial offender. He joked that America had become too polite. He even said, "If I got out, I'd probably do it again." The judge called him a continued danger to society. Jaime's father said he did not trust Michael's remorse. Andre Martin, now a police detective, also rejected the apology. Michael's sentence was adjusted. He remained in prison but could apply for release after 25 years, likely when he's in his mid-40s. While incarcerated, Michael faced multiple disciplinary actions. Guards confiscated homemade blades and a metal pipe from his cell. He was also caught trying to manipulate younger inmates, offering them protection in exchange for loyalty. In May 2021, at age 31, Michael collapsed at Columbia Correctional Institution near Jacksonville. Prison officials confirmed he had passed away. An autopsy showed he suffered a fatal heart rhythm disturbance related to severe obesity. In his final days, he weighed over 300 pounds. The next student's classmates knew he was troubled, but no one expected what he'd do on Valentine's Day. 3 months before the school tragedy, Nikolas Cruz lost the only parent he had left. He was born in 1998 in Margate, Florida. His birth mother, Brenda Woodard, battled addiction and was working the streets when he was born. His father was never identified. Soon after, Nikolas was placed in an orphanage. He was later adopted by Roger and Linda Cruz. Roger worked. Linda stayed home. They lived a quiet, modest life. When Nikolas was 5, Roger suddenly passed away from a heart issue. In 2017, he lost Linda, too. Nikolas was left without parents and bounced between relatives and family friends. Even as a child, Cruz showed signs of deep emotional trouble. He was diagnosed with ADHD and oppositional behavior. He struggled in school, shifted between classrooms, and never quite settled. He later rejoined Stoneman Douglas High School for a time. There, he joined the junior ROTC and trained with the air rifle team. But by 2017, his behavior worsened, and the school asked him to leave. After that, he worked at a dollar store and enrolled in a GED program to finish his education. On Valentine's Day, February 14, 2018, 19-year-old Cruz entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School carrying a semi-automatic rifle. Between about 2:21 p.m. and 2:27 p.m., he walked through the freshman building and fired his weapon into classrooms and hallways. 14 students and 3 staff members lost their lives. 17 others were hurt. Afterward, he left the rifle behind and blended into the crowd, leaving the building. About an hour later, police stopped him nearby and found extra-loaded magazines. Prosecutors said he chose that day, and that school out of spite for how he felt treated. Cruz later admitted he wanted to ruin Valentine's Day. His online posts showed hateful views about different groups. He carved hate symbols into his magazines and wrote hateful slurs on them. Within 24 hours, he was charged for each person who lost their life and each person who was hurt. He first pleaded not guilty and was watched closely during his first court appearance. In October 2021, he changed his plea to admit guilt. The court then moved on to decide his punishment, starting on July 18, 2022. His lawyers argued against the most severe option. They pointed to his difficult early years. They said his birth mother's struggles, exposure before birth, and emotional issues had harmed him. They asked the court to sentence him to life behind bars instead of the maximum. Prosecutors laid out detailed evidence. They showed video of him walking through the halls with the gun. Witnesses described his words just before he opened fire. They also highlighted his online research and the steps he took to buy the rifle. After months of careful deliberation, the jury found him eligible for the harshest option on October 13, 2022. But they could not all agree to impose it. One juror favored life in prison. Under state rules, the judge then had to set his sentence. On November 2, 2022, she gave him 34 consecutive life terms without any chance of release. During the hearing, family members spoke about their loss. The judge told them she would carry their grief so they could find a moment of peace. One survivor called him a hateful person with a gun and a God complex. Another spoke of the love that was cut short. Cruz also addressed the court. After pleading guilty, he said he was very sorry and that he regrets his actions every day. He said if he had a second chance, he would try to help others. Now 26, Cruz remains locked up in a Florida state prison. His sentence means he will spend the rest of his life there. The next teen's teachers were worried. His parents were indifferent. His classmates paid the price. Ethan Crumbley was a student at Oxford High School in Michigan. He was born in Atlantic Beach, Florida, before his family relocated north. His parents, James and Jennifer Crumbley, worked in business development and marketing. Before the incident, Ethan had a troubled home life. His only friend had moved away. The family dog had passed. He had shown troubling behavior at home. He harmed small animals. He drew dark scenes. In one incident, he left a bird's head in a bathroom. Ethan sent odd messages online. He talked about demons at home. He posted unsettling notes on social media. Despite this, his family went on weekend trips to shooting ranges. They lived comfortably. The day before the shooting, a teacher found drawings of a school shooting in Ethan's binder. His mother texted him, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught." It wasn't clear if she saw it as a real warning or just teen mischief. On November 30th, 2021, at just 15 years old, Ethan walked into school carrying a 9mm Sig Sauer handgun. He entered a bathroom and opened fire, then moved through the hallways. 4 students lost their lives. 7 others, including a teacher, were injured. Surveillance footage later showed the chilling precision of his actions. He aimed at classmates' heads and bodies, fired through locked doors, and chose his targets one by one. The judge would later call it callous and deliberate. Ethan was arrested on site. He was charged as an adult. The charges included 4 counts of first-degree premeditated harm and 7 counts of intending to cause bodily harm, 12 counts of carrying a firearm during another felony, and 1 count related to the use of fatal force to create public fear. In October 2022, he pleaded guilty. He did not try an insanity defense. He admitted he bought the gun himself and kept it unlocked at home. In September 2023, a judge ruled he could face life without parole. The judge noted the detailed planning and choices Ethan made. On December 8, 2023, Judge Kwame Rowe sentenced him to life in prison without parole, plus 24 additional years. During the hearing, each family of the students who passed spoke about their loss. Ethan kept his head down until a court officer asked him to look up. Just before sentencing, Ethan spoke in court. He said, "I really am sorry for what I've done and what I've taken from them. I can't give it back, but I can try my best in the future to help other people." He called himself a really bad person and asked the judge to give whatever punishment the families wanted. Those were his final public words at trial. Ethan later tried to withdraw his guilty plea in June 2024. He claimed his lawyer was not effective and that he might have cognitive issues from prenatal substance exposure. The judge dismissed that request. A further appeal in May 2025 was also denied. In April 2024, his parents made history. They were convicted for involuntary manslaughter. the first time parents faced criminal responsibility after a school shooting. The court found they failed to secure the firearm, ignored clear warning signs, and sent that flippant text. Each parent received a sentence of 10 to 15 years, with eligibility for parole after 10 years. Ethan is now 19 and serving his sentence at Oaks Correctional Facility in Michigan. The next student homecoming prince? Beloved by classmates. So why did he do what he did? Jaylen Ray Fryberg was born in 1999. He came from a well-known Native American family of the Tulalip tribe in Marysville, Washington. He was friendly and athletic. He had just been named freshman homecoming prince. People remembered him for his humor and kindness. His father was Raymond Fryberg Jr., and the family lived comfortably on the reservation. Jaylen loved sports and went hunting with friends. He spent most days with two cousins, Andrew and Nate Hatch, and classmates Zoe Galasso, Gia Soriano, and Shaylee Chuckle Naskit. He was also seen as a future leader in his community, respected among tribal elders for singing traditional songs at powwows and wearing ceremonial regalia. That cultural pride made what came next even harder to understand. In October 2014, things took a dark turn. Teachers said he was sent home after a fight on the field that began with hurtful racial words. Around the same time, someone close to him, friends said it might have been Zoe or an ex-girlfriend, rejected him. Jaylen grew quiet and kept to himself. His social media messages showed he felt hopeless. On October 18th, he wrote, "I set the date. Hopefully you regret not talking to me." 2 days later, he posted, "Bang bang, I'm gone." He also sent chilling personal texts. One message included a selfie with a gun resting between his legs. Another read, "Call me before I do this." Just before the shooting, he shared a note listing who should speak at his funeral and what he wanted to wear. One message to family read, "I needed to do this. I'm sorry, I love you. And I need my crew with me." On October 24th, 2014, at 10:39 a.m., Jaylen texted his friends and cousins asking them to skip class and meet him in the school cafeteria. Zoe, Gia, Shaylee, and his cousin Andrew sat together at one table while Nate was nearby. Jaylen walked in calmly. He stared at the group without showing feelings. He took out a .40 caliber Beretta PX-4 Storm, one of his father's guns that had never been reported. He opened fire 8 times at close range. When he was done, he turned the gun on himself and passed away on the cafeteria floor. One teacher, Megan Silberberger, ran toward the scene and tried to intervene. Witnesses said she didn't hesitate. She moved in just after the final shot. Investigators later ruled Jaylen's final wound was self-inflicted, but many believe the teacher's split-second decision may have prevented more lives from being lost. Because Jaylen passed away at the scene, there was no trial for him. Investigators traced the weapon back to his father. In March 2015, federal agents arrested Raymond Fryberg Jr. He had bought 5 firearms, including the one Jaylen used, even though a tribal court order from 2002 barred him from having guns. That order had never been entered into the national background check system. So when Raymond checked no on the federal gun form asking if he was under any protection orders, nothing flagged it. He passed the check and legally bought multiple weapons. In September 2015, a jury found him guilty of possessing those firearms illegally. In January 2016, he received 2 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years on probation. In court, he apologized and said he hadn't known about the tribal order. The next student's internet chats were disturbing, but no one knew just how far he'd take it. Jesse DeWitt Osborne was born in 2002 in a rural part of South Carolina. He grew up in a modest home. His family showed signs of instability. His father, Jeffrey Osborne, had past run-ins with the law over danger at home and issues with heavy drinking and soft substance use. The family wasn't rich, but they did own a semi-automatic pistol. That weapon later became central to what happened. In elementary school, Jesse was a decent student. Things shifted in middle school. He brought a hatchet and a machete to West Oak Middle School. The school expelled him. After that, he was homeschooled. He grew more isolated. He spent hours alone on online forums about mass harm. By mid-2016, private chats captured some chilling talk. Jesse told others he might take the lives of 50 or 60 people. He said that if luck was on his side, maybe even 150. He also said he admired the people behind the Sandy Hook tragedy. He seemed to be gathering ideas and making plans. On the morning of September 28, 2016, around 11:30 a.m., Jesse walked into his family's house. He used that pistol to shoot his father 3 times while he slept in a recliner. Jesse later told police that his father had yelled at him the night before over money. In that moment, Jesse lost control. Once his father was gone, Jesse kissed his rabbit and other pets goodbye. He put on a bulletproof vest, stole his father's truck, and drove about 3 miles to his old elementary school. He crashed through a fence just before 1:44 p.m. He shouted, "I hate my life," and began shooting on the playground where first graders were celebrating a birthday. He fired his .40 caliber pistol for about 12 seconds. 3 students and a teacher were wounded. 6-year-old Jacob Hall suffered a leg wound and was in critical condition. Jacob went into cardiac arrest and passed away 3 days later. At that point, Jesse panicked. His pistol jammed. He dropped the gun and the vest. He had tears in his eyes. He kept repeating that he had shot his father and that he was going to hell. A volunteer firefighter held him until the police arrived. Jesse then called his grandparents and confessed while crying. His grandmother later found his father's body at home. Police charged Jesse with 2 counts of taking lives, his father and Jacob Hall, 3 counts of attempted loss of life, and 5 counts of weapons possession. In September 2018, he pleaded not guilty as the case moved from family court to adult court. By December 12, 2018, he changed his plea to guilty on all counts and gave up the right to a jury trial. His lawyer mentioned there was a plea deal and sentencing was delayed. At trial, prosecutors pointed to Jesse's internet obsession with mass harm. An investigator confirmed he had planned for months. Witnesses said online chats had encouraged him. On November 13, 2019, Judge R. Lawton McIntosh sentenced Jesse to life in prison without any chance of early release for Jacob Hall's case. On top of that, Jesse received 30 more years for the attempted losses to run one after the other. He first stayed at Kirkland Correctional, then moved to Turbyville and Lieber, and by January 2024 he was back at Kirkland. In September 2023, a judge changed his 2 life terms into 2 75-year terms. This adjustment lets him take part in prison education programs. Jesse asked for a shorter sentence, 30 years for each loss and 15 years for each attempt, but the court said no. They noted he still would not admit responsibility for what he did at the school and that he had declined mental health help. Now what about a student who treated his high school as a cold experiment in human behavior? But before we move on to the next case, consider subscribing for more important stories like these. Gabriel Ross Parker was born in 2002 in Kentucky. He grew up in a middle-class home. He lived with his mother and stepfather. He saw his biological father now and then. Over time, their contact improved. His childhood was fairly ordinary. Investigators later found some ideological books in his room. Those texts may hint at his inner thoughts. On January 23, 2018, at 7:57 a.m., Gabe arrived at Marshall County High School in Benton, Kentucky. He carried a Ruger .22 pistol. He had taken it from his stepfather's closet the night before. First, he went into the band room. He wanted to make sure his friends were not in his way. Then he moved to the commons area. Students were gathering there. Witnesses remember he did not say a word. His eyes looked empty. He began firing the gun into the crowd. He did not aim at anyone in particular. 2 15-year-old classmates did not survive. 14 others were hit by bullets, and several more were hurt as people ran away. When the gun ran out of bullets, Gabe set it down near the band room door. Then he walked to the weight room. He blended in with other students. School staff found him there at 8:06 a.m. He stayed calm. He did not resist. He showed no emotion. He spoke with investigators for almost 2 hours. A captain later called the interview bizarre and shockingly calm. Gabe said he had planned the event for about a week. He hid the gun in a laundry basket to steal it. He said he weighed the pros and cons before acting. When asked why, he offered cold philosophical ideas. He said he did not believe life had any purpose. He called the shooting an experiment. He wanted to see how people and authorities would react. He even said he was curious about being locked up. Once his bullets were gone, he chose to hide rather than keep going. Gabe admitted he had thought about ending his own life in December. He decided that harming others would hurt his family more than his own passing would. He said he wanted to break the monotony of life. For him, the act was both a performance and a form of escape. He was charged as an adult on February 16, 2018. He faced 2 counts of taking life and 14 counts of causing serious harm. His defense asked to move the case to juvenile court. That request was denied. In May 2019, the proceedings moved to Christian County to limit media coverage. On April 28, 2020, Gabe pleaded guilty to all charges as part of a deal. Sentencing occurred on June 12, 2020. The judge, visibly moved, gave him 2 life sentences plus 70 years. He can ask for release after 20 years. The extra 70 years cover the harm to the survivors. Family members spoke directly to Gabe in court. Preston's father said, "I see pure evil. I pray he never gets out of prison. My son's life was taken from us. Bailey's mother said, some days I still can't breathe when I think about it. His defense attorney called Gabe a lost child, not an evil person. He said he hoped Gabe might one day find a way to make amends. The judge said there was no true justice or a way to undo what happened. He added that the sentence would help prevent it from ever happening again. Up next is white supremacist material, a handwritten warning, a courtroom divided. Brandon David McInerney was born in 1994 in Ventura, California. His early years were unstable. His mother, Kendra, dealt with substance use and legal issues. His father, William, had a record of aggressive behavior at home. He once shot Kendra and placed his hands around her neck. In 2004, after his mother entered rehab, Brandon went to live with his father. People who knew Brandon say he seemed like a regular kid. He was athletic and had blonde hair. He liked bikes and skinhead fashion. He could also get angry quickly. Underneath that normal look, his home life was tense. On February 11th and 12, 2008, something serious happened between Brandon and his classmate Lawrence Larry King. Larry was 15 and expressed himself in ways some classmates found unusual. He sometimes wore makeup, heels, and jewelry. He had asked Brandon to be his Valentine. He teased Brandon at school by saying, "Love you, baby." Did that teasing push Brandon too far? His defense argued it did. A psychologist noted Brandon thought about the situation again and again. Brandon himself admitted, "All I could think about was I wanted him gone." But other signs point to planning. Brandon tried to get friends to help him confront Larry. When they refused, he warned, "Say goodbye to your friend Larry. You'll never see him again." The day before, he practiced handling the gun at home. On February 12, 2008, at E.O. Green Junior High, students were working on computers. Brandon took a .22 caliber revolver from his backpack. He fired 2 shots at Larry in the back of his head. Then he left the classroom. It took 7 minutes before authorities found him about 5 blocks away. Brandon, only 14 at the time, was tried as an adult. Prosecutors said he acted with planning and bias. They pointed to white supremacist materials found in his room. The defense said he lost control in a moment of strong emotion. His first trial began on July 5, 2011. On September 1, 2011, it ended without a decision. 5 jurors saw it as planned harm, and 7 saw it as a less serious act. Some jurors said Larry's behavior influenced their views. In the retrial, prosecutors dropped the hate-related charge. On November 21, 2011, Brandon pled guilty to second-degree harm, voluntary manslaughter, and weapons charges. On December 19, 2011, he was sentenced to 21 years in prison. He received no credit for the time served before trial or for good behavior. Brandon remained silent at sentencing. His attorney said he felt deep remorse and wished he could undo what happened. Larry's father, Greg King, spoke out with pain and anger. He said Brandon chose to pick on a smaller kid and left a hole in his heart that can never be filled. Next is a California teen who felt invisible and chose to make everyone notice. Jeffrey James Weise was born in 1988 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. His home life was unsettled from the start. His mother, Joanne, was 17. She struggled with heavy drinking and emotional ups and downs. Jeff spent much of his early childhood apart from her. His father, Darrell Lucier Jr., took custody when Jeff was a few months old. In 1997, during a police standoff involving Jeff's grandfather, Darrell Sr., his father took his own life. In 1999, Jeff's mother was in a serious car crash. She suffered major brain injuries. She needed long-term care in an institution. After that, Jeff moved in with his grandmother on the Red Lake Ojibwe Reservation. He changed schools often. He faced bullying, loneliness, and behavior challenges. At age 15, he was diagnosed with depression. He began therapy and was prescribed Prozac. 1 week before the events, his dose was increased. Jeff grew up with little money and few friends. He felt cut off from others. He became interested in neo-Nazi symbols and writings. Online, he posted angry messages. He called himself Todesengel, or Angel of Death. He even warned he would open fire at school on Hitler's birthday. Early in 2005, his schooling was moved to home-based classes for discipline reasons. On March 21, 2005, at 2:47 p.m., Jeff carried out his plan. He went to his grandfather's lakeside home with a .22 Ruger pistol. He shot his grandfather twice in the head and 10 times in the chest. Then he fired 2 more rounds at his grandfather's partner, Michelle Sagana. He left with his grandfather's police Glock, shotgun, bulletproof vest, and squad car. Just 2 minutes later, at about 2:49 p.m., Jeff drove the squad car into Red Lake Senior High School. Inside, he used the shotgun on unarmed security guard Derek Brunn near the metal detector. He then fired into the main hallway. He took the life of English teacher Neva Rogers. He moved into a classroom and shot 5 students with grim focus. At one point, he asked a student, "Do you believe in God?" Then he opened fire again. The school staff and students hid or barricaded doors. Tribal police officers returned fire. Jeff was hit in the arm and abdomen. He retreated to an empty classroom. There, he used the shotgun on himself and took his own life at age 16. In total, 9 people lost their lives that day. His grandfather, his grandfather's partner, a security guard, a teacher, and 5 students. Several others were injured but survived. Why did Jeff do this? There was no single reason. He had lost both parents to tragedy. He felt deep anger, grief, and shame. He was bullied and isolated. He immersed himself in extremist imagery. His writings show he wanted attention and fear. He resented authority figures. He posted threats and disturbing art online. Those warnings went unnoticed until it was too late. They said the next student was quiet, pale, and soft-spoken. But that morning, everything changed. Charles Andrew Andy Williams was born in 1986 in Frederick, Maryland. He was the oldest child of Jeff and Linda Williams. He had a half-brother named Michael. When Andy was about 4, his parents divorced. In the fall of 1990, he moved with his father to California. Jeff worked at Balboa Naval Hospital. Andy was small and pale. He spoke softly. These traits made him stand out at Santana High School in Santee, California. Teachers and students sometimes treated him poorly. He kept his circle small. Michael said Andy always had a small group of really close friends. He rarely talked about what happened at school. By age 15, Andy felt overwhelmed. His parents split. A big move, the passing of a friend, and mistreatment by an older teen piled up. Friends later said he seemed ready to harm himself. He even mentioned wanting to mimic the 1999 Columbine incident. The Williams family lived comfortably. They owned a modest home. Jeff's hospital job paid the bills. Their struggles were personal, not financial. Shortly before 9:20 a.m. on March the 5th, 2001, Andy carried his father's .22 caliber revolver into the boys' restroom. He fired at 14-year-old freshman Brian Zucker. Then he moved into the hallway and aimed at others. 17-year-old Randy Gordon did not survive. 13 people, including a teacher and campus security supervisor Peter Ruiz, were injured. When asked why, Andy said he was tired of being bullied. On the way to juvenile hall, he claimed friends dared him. He admitted he thought about forcing police to end his life. He wanted attention, even if it meant people would perish. After the gunshots stopped, Andy did not try to run. He put down the weapon and gave himself up. On June 20th, 2002, Andy pleaded guilty as an adult. On August 15, 2002, Superior Court Judge Herbert Exarchos sentenced him to 50 years to life. Prosecutors had sought 425 years, but law limits for youths applied. The judge noted Andy's tears and deep regret. Andy said, "I'm sorry. If I could go back to that day, I would never have gotten out of bed." The judge also mentioned Andy's work folding origami, mentoring other young people, and writing a poem titled March 5th, 01. There was a kid who had a gun, he finally decided. He had nothing to lose. The judge ruled Andy must wait until age 65 for his first chance at release. He earned credit for 529 days already served. He also faced a fine of $10,000 and restitution. Andy spent his teen years in a youth program. At 18, he moved to an adult facility, including secure housing for those with special needs. Throughout his sentence, he has expressed regret and worked on self-improvement. He became eligible for release in September 2024 at age 38. The California Parole Board denied him. They cited how serious the incident was and how much the community was affected. His next hearing will be in 3 years. At sentencing, Andy's final words were, "I feel horrible about what happened. If I could go back to that day, I would never have gotten out of bed." The next student was hiding in the locker room. His next move would haunt Cold Spring for decades. John Jason McLaughlin was born in 1988. He grew up in rural Cold Spring, Minnesota. His parents, David and Mary McLaughlin, raised him in a middle-class home. They did not show signs of great wealth. Jason did not have many friends. A former teacher said he was often invisible at school. He seemed isolated and sometimes acted unpredictably. No one noticed clear signs of his mental struggles. On the morning of September 24th, 2003, Jason was a 15-year-old freshman at Rocori High School. He took his father's .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. He put it in his gym bag. Then he went into the boys' locker room. He went into a bathroom stall and prepared the weapon. After cocking it, he hid and waited. When Seth Bartell, 14, and RS left the locker room, Jason followed them. He wanted to hurt Seth, who he said had teased him all the time. The first shot hit Seth's side. The second shot missed Seth and hit Aaron Rollins, 17. Aaron fell and cried out, "Help me, I've been shot." Jason then reloaded. He found Seth again in the gym. He fired a close-range shot to the back of Seth's head. Aaron did not survive his injuries. Seth did not recover and passed away a few weeks later. Jason later told investigators he thought a .22 would only wound, not end a life. He said he wanted the teasing to stop, not to cause permanent harm, but the outcome was tragic. After his arrest, Jason had many psychiatric evaluations. A report from March 8, 2005 said he showed early psychotic symptoms, likely schizophrenia. He had concrete, childlike thinking, felt persecuted, and saw the world in a distorted way. He believed harming Seth's arm would stop the teasing. He seemed unaware of how serious his actions were. In court, experts disagreed on his mental state. 3 said paranoid schizophrenia. 3 said major depression or a developing personality issue. None believed he met the legal test for not knowing right from wrong. The judge found that he did understand that what he did was wrong. Jason was tried as an adult in Stearns County. He faced 2 counts of causing loss of life and a weapons violation for bringing a gun to school. In July 2005, he received 2 life sentences, served one after the other. The judge noted his youth and mental health but said they did not outweigh the planned nature of his actions. Jason appealed, arguing the rule on insanity was out of date for young people. In January 2007, the Minnesota Supreme Court upheld his conviction and sentences. He has now spent over 20 years in prison. A 2023 change in Minnesota law let juvenile offenders seek parole. In February 2025, Jason asked for release. The parole board denied his request. At the hearing, his voice shook as he said, "I am not the same person I was 21 years ago. I want the families of those I hurt to know I am sorry and that I try every day to honor their sons." Many still feel he does not fully understand the harm he caused. Now, what drives a 13-year-old to end the life of the teacher he called his favorite? Nathaniel Brazill was born on September 22, 1986, in Florida. His childhood home was unstable. There was frequent shouting and adults drinking too much. Police were called to his house more than once. At first, his school grades were okay. Later, he got 2 Ds and an F in his English class. That class was taught by Barry Grunow. Grunow was one of his favorite teachers, and Brazill's classmates said he was gentle and well-liked. On the last day of the 1999-2000 school year at Lake Worth Middle School, Brazill got in trouble for tossing water balloons. He was sent home by the school counselor. He went to his grandfather's house nearby. There, he found a small .25 caliber Raven handgun hidden in a cookie tin. He picked it up and walked back to school. At school, Brazill knocked on Grunow's classroom door. Grunow told him the lesson was in progress and he could not come in. Brazill then lifted the gun. It went off. The bullet struck Grunow in the head. Grunow passed away at once. Another teacher standing in the hallway was almost struck but managed to move away in time. In court, Brazill said he only meant to scare Grunow. He said the shot went off by accident. Prosecutors argued it was on purpose. They said Grunow had stopped Brazill from talking to 2 girls in class. That seemed to make Brazill angry. Several things may explain why a 13-year-old brought a gun to school. He had just been suspended. His home life was chaotic. Experts said he was so upset that he stopped thinking in the moment. Even so, he was tried as an adult in West Palm Beach. That decision caused public outcry and drew criticism from groups like Amnesty International. The jury considered charges of causing Grunow's passing and of pointing the gun at another teacher. They found Brazill responsible for both. On May 16, 2001, a judge convicted him. In late July 2001, the judge heard arguments on how long Brazill should stay locked up. Prosecutors asked for a life sentence. They called Brazill cold-blooded and said he showed no remorse. His defense team asked for leniency. They said he was very young and could change for the better. Judge Richard Wennett gave Brazill 28 years behind bars. He would stay in juvenile care until he turned 18. Then he would move to an adult prison. He also got 5 years of supervision after release and 2 years in a community program. He must earn a GED and attend anger management classes. At sentencing, Brazill spoke to the judge. He said, "I'm sorry. Words can't really show how I feel, but they're all I have." He called Grunow a great teacher and said he felt deep regret for the pain caused to the teacher's spouse. Brazill's mother, Polly Powell, also spoke. She begged for mercy and said, "I love Nathaniel more than anything. Please be kind to him." Gruno's family asked for the maximum penalty. They said it was the only fair outcome given the loss they suffered. Brazill was given credit for 428 days already spent in custody. He began serving his full term after that. He is now held at Wakulla Correctional Institution Annex in Florida. His release date is set for May 18, 2028. While inside, he earned a GED and a paralegal certificate. He has stayed busy by filing paperwork and taking part in programs to prepare for life outside prison. The next student warned them in forums. They thought he was trolling. William Edward Atchison was born on March 18, 1996. He grew up in rural New Mexico, first in Belen, then in Aztec with his parents. He went to Aztec High School and kept a 3.5 GPA until his sophomore year. Then anxiety and an obsession with dark-themed movies and games began to pull him away from classes. Classmates remember a shy boy who stuttered and wore a trench coat. He often sat alone. At home, he clashed with his parents. He spoke harshly to his father and said his mother was unwell. He never faced legal charges, but neighbors saw worrying behavior. One said he used an airsoft gun on their dogs. He also threatened a neighbor's husband over cannabis plants on their property. No charges followed, but these incidents showed growing tension. Online, he built a dark persona. He joined extremist forums using names linked to past notorious figures. He posted images praising hate groups. On Steam and YouTube, he asked how to plan a mass shooting and where to buy cheap rifles. He even joked about writing a manifesto on a parody site. Others thought he was just trolling. His father saw him visiting far-right websites but thought it was a phase. In March of 2016, an anonymous tip led the FBI to interview him and his family. He said he was only joking, had no weapons, and asked to go on a watch list. Agents closed the case, treating his messages as free speech. No one checked back. By November 2017, he and his father went to a store and he legally bought a Glock 19 handgun. His father teased him, never do a school incident. He and his brother tested a small rifle soon after. Weeks later, he toured Aztec High under the guise of a future student. Staff showed him around on a quiet day. On December 7, 2017, he left home with a backpack full of ammunition and a thumb drive of notes. The notes read, "If things go according to plan, today would be when I die. Hold a class hostage and go apeshit, then blow my brains out." He felt trapped and empty. At about 8:04 a.m., dressed like other students, he slipped into a bathroom near the 800-900th building. When Francisco Paco Hernandez walked in, he used the gun on him. Paco did not survive. He then stepped into the hallway and used the gun on 17-year-old cheerleader Casey Jordan Marquez. She did not survive either. A custodian warned everyone that an armed person was inside. Substitute teacher Katie Potter locked her classroom door and kept students safe. Staff and students hid or fled. He moved through hallways, reloading several times, but no more lives were lost. Police arrived within a minute. When they reached him, he had taken his own life. Was this driven by extremist beliefs, deep loneliness, or a desire for notoriety? Online, he used the name Elliot Roger, hinting at mixed motives. Some point to his far-right views. Others see a personal breakdown. An advocacy group had flagged his extremist posts, but local authorities said his personal struggles were the main issue. Whatever the cause, what happened was sudden and devastating. The next student had no ties to the victims, but he kept circling their street. Bryan Kohberger was born in 1994 in Pennsylvania. He finished high school at Pleasant Valley in 2013. After that, he went to Monroe Career and Technical Institute for 1 year and then left. He spent some time working as a security officer for his local school district. In 2018, he earned an associate degree in psychology from Northampton Community College. He then completed a bachelor's in psychology and forensics at DeSales University. In 2022, he finished a master's in criminal justice at the same school. In the summer of 2022, Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington. He started a PhD program in criminology at Washington State University. He also took on a teaching assistant role. Some classmates found him socially awkward. They said he liked deep, complicated discussions and seemed eager to fit in. By December 19, 2022, faculty had received complaints about his behavior toward women. He was removed from his teaching role that day. Court documents and media reports note that Kohberger has several diagnoses. These include autism spectrum disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, tinnitus, and visual snow syndrome. His defense team later highlighted these conditions during legal proceedings. His family life has stayed mostly private. His parents supported him during the investigation and asked for privacy after his arrest. A key moment in the investigation came when police gathered trash from his father's home. They found genetic material that matched a sheath left at the scene of a fatal incident. In the early hours of November 13, 2022, a masked person entered a shared rental house near the University of Idaho in Moscow. 4 students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, lost their lives. All of them were in bed or asleep at the time. Medical reports showed each had multiple deep wounds to the chest and upper body. One of the students also had marks showing an attempt to defend themselves. The sharp tool used, a military-style fixed blade, was gone. The intruder left without taking anything else and was gone by around 4:25 a.m. No one else saw what happened. One roommate hid and later told police she had seen a man with bushy eyebrows inside the house that night. Investigators treated the event as deliberate. They did not know if the person knew the students or simply chose that house at random. Police reviewed neighborhood video footage and tips. They spotted a white Hyundai Elantra driving around the area several times that same night. It arrived around 3:29 a.m., drove off at 4:04 a.m., and left again at about 4:20 a.m. The break in the case came when DNA from the discarded sheath matched the material collected at Kohberger's family home. Investigators also saw that his phone connected to cell towers close to the house right before and after the tragedy. In the days after November 13th, Kohberger and his father drove back to Pennsylvania. They were stopped twice by Indiana police, but released with warnings. On December 30th, 2022, state police in Pennsylvania arrested him. He agreed to return to Idaho without contesting extradition in early January 2023. On January 5th, 2023, prosecutors brought charges: 4 counts of first-degree homicide and 1 count of unlawful entry with intent to end lives. In May 2023, he pleaded not guilty and faced the possibility of the harshest penalty under Idaho law. Prosecutors described the acts as planned and deliberate. They noted that Kohberger had studied well-known serial offenders and had spent time in online communities that express anger toward women. Still, no clear reason for targeting that house ever emerged. In his written statement, he admitted planning and carrying out the events but did not explain why. Surveillance and witness accounts showed Kohberger had no known personal ties to the students. He had driven past the rental multiple times in the months before. Some observers suggested he was fixated on his studies and on certain online groups, but nothing was proven. The case was set for trial in Boise in August 2025, with jury selection on August 4th and opening statements on August 11th. On June 30th, 2025, Kohberger chose to enter a guilty plea. He did this to avoid the harshest possible punishment. In return, he accepted 4 consecutive life sentences plus 10 years for unlawful entry. He gave up any right to appeal. At a July 2nd hearing, his only response to each count was yes. The judge accepted the plea. Family members reacted in different ways. Some felt robbed of a full trial. Others felt relief that there would be a formal resolution. A court order still limits what can be said in public, but several media outlets are pushing to lift it now that no trial will take place. Under the agreement, Kohberger will serve life terms without any chance of release, plus a decade for the break-in. The formal sentencing hearing is set for July 23, 2025. After that, he will begin serving his time in Idaho's prison system.